Visiting today's Jewish quarter in Jerusalem, one can easily miss the stones that testify to one of the most important events in Christian history. Excavations between the Chabad Street and the HaYehudim Street have uncovered sections of the Byzantine Cardo, extending intermittently for approximately 180 meters. Looking at Jerusalem from this perspective, the historical street is located here. The finding is the Cardo Maximus, the central north-southern oriented street which became the main street in Jerusalem during the Roman period. The history I am about to tell you will change your perception of much of today's beliefs and theology of the modern church. I will also show you the transformation of Jerusalem from a Jewish city to Jerusalem as a Christian relic that influenced the generations to come. But before I will do that, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification button to stay informed about new episodes on Israel, my channel. So let's begin our journey in time. The city of Jerusalem will not remember the 1st century AD as a joyful celebration of the new millennium. On the contrary, after the Jewish revolt beginning in 66 AD, the Romans destroyed the city and the glorious Jewish temple, which was enlarged by Herod the Great to an outstanding size. During the visit of Emperor Hadrian to Judea in the 130s AD, Jerusalem ruins were surveyed and Hadrian decided to build a Roman colony in its place. The new city was named Aelia Capitolina after the Roman deities Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, the capital triad worshipped at the Capitol Hill Temple in Rome. Hadrian's attempts to impose Roman culture on Jews invoked a reaction similar to those of his predecessor Antiochus in Hasmonean times. All the Judeans, including their leaders, refused to relinquish their ancestor faith and spiritual heritage. Thus, a powerful conflict was ignited, culminating in an open revolt against Rome. The revolt succeeded and the rebels established an independent state with all its symbols and institutions, including mining coins, some inscribed with the facade of the temple. In the early stages of the revolt, they may even have rebuilt the altar on the Temple Mount and offered sacrifices and were planning to build the temple. According to Cassiodeo, 580,000 Jews perished in the war and many more died of hunger and disease. 50 fortresses and 985 villages were destroyed. The Jewish communities of Judea were devastated to the extent which some scholars described as a genocide. In an attempt to erase any memory of Judea or ancient Israel, Emperor Hadrian wiped the name of the map and replaced it with Syria Palestina. On the side note, I am sure this is an interesting point in the modern debate and the questions with the Palestinian people. In relation, after suppressing the revolt, Hadrian continued to build the temple to Jupiter Capitolius on the Temple Mount. Realizing that the Judeo-Christians were objecting to emperor worship, he also began to build a temple to the goddesses Aphrodite at the site where, according to Judeo-Christian belief, Jesus has been crucified and buried. In addition, he decided to rebuild Jerusalem as a pagan city. A master plan was drawn up, based in general on the old plan of the city from the last days of the Second Temple. 2 main streets running the length of the city from north to south, the Cardines and the Decumanus crossing the city from west to east, were built up. Hadrian's ambitious plans for Jerusalem are visible in an attempt to build a hippodrome located south of Jerusalem. Here you can see a coin of the Emperor Hadrian showing a pair of oxen pulling a plow. In Rome, a stone-laying ceremony was accompanied by plowing. This act on the Temple Mount and in Jerusalem is recalling Micah's prophecy of doom.
Therefore shall Zion, for your sake, be plowed as a field.
With Caesarea remaining the country's capital, Hadrian's efforts to rebuild Jerusalem were not very successful. Any attempt to rebuild Jerusalem without its religious and emotional foundation was doomed to failure because its location did not justify its status as the country's principal city under Roman rule. Thus, Aelia Capitolina never achieved the previous distinction of Jerusalem despite the considerable resources invested in the development. The fate of Jerusalem changed in the 4th century when Constantine was crowned the Emperor of Rome. Adept at reading the political map of the world, Constantine understood that the principal danger to Rome's existence lay in the east. Like his predecessors, he realized a uniform culture based on religion would be a unifying force and ensure the continuity of Roman rule. Where he differed from his predecessors, however, was in his realization that he could not fight the new faith, Christianity, that had already gained many adherents all over the empire, especially in the east. The persecution of Christians by earlier Roman emperors had not only failed to harm Christianity, but had even strengthened it and helped it spread. Realizing that he could not eradicate Christianity, he pursued his goal of making religion and culture uniform in the empire by first permitting the practice of new faith and then proclaiming it the empire's principal religion. The emperor thus succeeded where Antiochus Epiphanes and Hadrian's have failed. For the first time in world's history, a single religion and a uniform culture were constituted throughout the empire, earning Constantine the admiration and respect of Christian leaders. The Roman Empire, at that point of time in a state of decline, was granted another 300 years of rule in the East, the period known in history of the Middle East as the Byzantine period. After Helena, Constantine's mother, had located the site of Jesus' crucifixion and burial, a church was built there, with a rotunda over the tomb. During Constantine's reign, construction was begun on a new residential neighborhood at the foot of the Temple Mount ruins to its south. Houses were first built with large spaces between them for the courtyards and gardens. However, the buildings gradually became more crowded, and by the end of the Byzantine period, the 6th and the 7th centuries, the neighborhood was one of the most densely populated in Jerusalem. Today you can see the remains of those buildings in the archaeological park south of the Temple Mount. Constantine's son and heir, Constantius II, later began to impose restrictions on the Jews as the first step in Christianity's struggle against Judaism. Imperial legislation published in 339 AD was aimed at reinforcing anti-Jewish canons issued by a church council convented earlier in the Spanish town of Elvira, focusing on 3 subjects: prohibition of marriage between Jews and Christians, increased protection of Jewish converts to Christianity, prohibition of Jews owning Christian or other non-Jewish slaves. These were the first provisions in Byzantine imperial legislation aimed at eradicating Judaism through apostasy and forced conversion. These ties between the empire and Christianity had faithful results for Jerusalem's history. In Christian theology, the temple symbolized the old covenant between God and his people Israel. With the coming of Jesus, however, according to a new theology, a new covenant had been established and the revocation of the old one through the destruction of the temple. This symbolized a turning point and the end of one path and the first step on a new path. The Christians were now the new Israel. Eusebius of Caesarea, living from AD 260 to 339, from whom much of Christians' history comes, describes the legalization of Christianity and the merging of church and state as the realization of the millennial kingdom prophesied in the Apocalypse written by Apostle John. As the trusted advisor to Constantine, he portrayed the Roman ruler as a sort of a Messiah who sat on a new throne of David, ruling from Christendom. From that time on, the Jewish understanding of the Bible is neglected and replaced by a new theology, which is sometimes called as the replacement theology, where the new body of the church replaces Israel. The eternal promises given to the descendants of Jacob, David, and the house of Israel and Judah are now transferred to the state religion ruled from Constantinople. Unfortunately, this theology prevailed till today and is taught in many churches as it was in the Catholic Church beginnings and even by the reformers who shaped the Protestant movement. The Christians permitted the Jews to enter their holy city only once a year, on the 9th of the Hebrew month Av, the anniversary of the destruction of the first and second temple, to mourn its loss. To give you a glimpse of how Jerusalem looked at the time of the Byzantine, I made a 3D illustration of the Cardo Maximus. So let's check it out together, shall we? We know the layout of Jerusalem from the part of the Madaba map that depicts Jerusalem with the Cardo Maximus in the center as a colonnaded street. Two important structures along the Cardo were the Neo Church and Holy Sepulchre. The Cardo most striking visual feature was the colonnade, clearly depicted on the Madaba map. The Cardo was comprised of a central lane open to the sky for the passage of carriages and animals, flanked on each side by colonnaded covered walkways for pedestrians. The road is paved with stone slabs and it's 22.5 meters wide. In some sections of the Cardo, excavations revealed covered stalls and workshops that stood along the walkways. So enjoy the view and thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please don't forget to subscribe to Israel My channel. You can also support my work by clicking on the join button on my main channel page. Have a great day and shalom.
Oi, you! Step up here. Apples, one copper. I'm gonna give me a hand over here. Hi, get a home. How much for the full night? Stay here for a few days, madam.
Oh, so where have you been, Daddy?
Hey, lovely lady.
Oh, you're a fine-looking lad. Ooh. Hey, Laddie.
Are you? What are you doing here? What's your purpose? Give me a minute. Move along. Move along. Be off.
Oh,
Not as bad. Let's go.